For 42 years, John Miller worked as an electrician in Ohio. Rain, snow, holidays, he never stopped. Every paycheck, he saved a little more, dreaming of one thing: a peaceful retirement. A house near the lake. Coffee on the porch with his wife, Anne. And when he finally turned 67, that dream was within reach. But 3 months later, it was all gone. Not because of bad luck. Because of a voice on the phone. It started with a call on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. John Miller had just finished mowing the lawn, poured himself a glass of iced tea, and sat down to check his emails. That's when the phone rang. The voice on the other end was smooth, steady, and polite, the kind of tone that puts you at ease before you even realize it. "Good afternoon, Mr. Miller. This is Alex Parker with Summit Retirement Solutions. I hope I'm not disturbing you." John smiled faintly. No one had called him Mr. Miller in years. He replied, "Not at all, son. What's this about?" Alex chuckled warmly. "Well, sir, we're reaching out to seniors in your area who've worked hard their whole lives, folks just like you, to make sure your retirement savings are protected from this unpredictable market." The words rolled out perfectly. Protected. Guaranteed. Secure. Every word sounded like safety, and after a lifetime of hard work, safety was all John wanted. For the next few minutes, Alex spoke about new investment plans designed exclusively for retirees. He mentioned things John recognized: FDIC insurance, government-backed bonds, low-risk growth. It all sounded official, familiar. Nothing about it raised alarm bells. "The best part," Alex said, "is that we can double your current return without putting a single penny at risk." Double. No risk. To John, that sounded like a miracle, but one wrapped in professionalism, not fantasy. Over the next few days, Alex called again. Never pushy, always respectful. He asked about John's grandkids, about his years working at the power plant, even about the old Chevy truck John kept in his garage. He listened, really listened, and that made all the difference. Alex knew just how to build trust. He sent brochures by mail, glossy, official-looking ones with seals and signatures. There was a toll-free number, a website, even testimonials from other clients. He followed up with gentle reminders, never sounding desperate. "No rush at all, John," he'd say with a reassuring laugh. "I just don't want you missing out on an opportunity that's meant for people who've earned it." Those words hit home. People who'd earned it. John had earned it. 42 years of long shifts, sore backs, and late nights. So when Alex said, "You deserve to relax, John, let your money work for you," it didn't sound like a sales pitch. It sounded like the truth. John began to picture it, the life Alex described. He saw himself and Anne driving to the lake in the morning, fishing rods in the back, stopping at the diner they loved. He imagined the stress melting away. No more worrying about markets, inflation, or bills. For the first time in months, he felt peaceful. That night, he told Anne about Alex. She was cautious, as always. "John, we don't know this man. You sure it's safe?" John smiled. "Honey, he's legitimate. He sent me documents. He sounds professional. Even mentioned FDIC insurance. He's not one of those scammers on TV." And nodded slowly but still looked uneasy. She'd seen too many stories on the news about seniors being tricked. But John had already made up his mind. The next morning, he signed the forms Alex emailed and authorized the transfer. His entire retirement fund, $280,000. For a while, everything seemed perfect. Each month, John received detailed statements showing steady growth. Sometimes Alex would call just to check in. "Your portfolio's looking great, John. You made 4% this month, risk-free." John laughed. "You're doing a fine job, Alex." He even started recommending Alex to friends at church. "Smart young man," he'd say. "Understands how to keep your money safe." Life felt secure again. He and Ann booked a trip to Florida, their first vacation in years. They finally felt free. Then one morning, John noticed something odd. He hadn't received his monthly statement. He called the toll-free number. "We're sorry, this number is no longer in service." He tried the website. Error 404. He checked his bank account. The balance was almost empty. Panic crept in. He dialed Alex's personal number. Voicemail. He called again and again and again. Nothing. The next day, he went to the local branch of his bank. The manager looked at the papers John brought, the contracts, the letterhead, the Summit retirement forms, and sighed. "I'm sorry, Mr. Miller. This company doesn't exist." John's hands shook. He felt cold. The world blurred for a moment, as if someone had pulled the floor out from under him. All those nights working overtime. All those years saving every dollar. Gone, in a matter of weeks. That night, he sat in silence at the kitchen table while Ann made tea. Neither spoke for a long time. Finally, she said softly, "John, what are we going to do?" He stared at the papers. Fake seals, fake signatures, fake promises. His voice cracked. "I don't know." The realization hit him like a slow, cruel wave. His money wasn't working for him. It was never working for him. It had been vanishing, little by little, from the moment he trusted Alex Parker. That's how most scams begin. Not with greed. Not with stupidity. But with trust. Because when you've spent your whole life believing in honesty and hard work, it's hard to imagine that someone could use those same values to destroy you. Within weeks, Alex had become a familiar voice in John's life. Each call began with warmth and reassurance. He spoke with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what he was doing, a man who seemed trustworthy, calm, and professional. John found himself looking forward to their conversations. It felt good to have someone younger explain the confusing world of investments in simple, friendly words. Alex often said, "John, my job isn't to make you rich, it's to make you safe." That sentence alone carried weight. Safety. That was all John wanted. He'd spent 4 decades earning every dollar he had, and he wasn't looking for miracles, just peace of mind. So when Alex suggested transferring his savings into a special retirement protection account, it sounded completely reasonable. He described it as a government-linked program, a place where John's money would be insured, untouched by market crashes or inflation. "It's your nest egg, John," Alex said smoothly. "You've worked too hard to let Wall Street gamblers touch it. Let me put it somewhere the government actually safeguards." John hesitated for a moment, but Alex anticipated every question. He sent papers with official seals, account numbers, even digital dashboards showing supposed balances. Everything looked legitimate. And when John spoke to his wife, Ann, she reluctantly agreed. "If it's really government-backed," she said, "maybe it's worth a try." The next morning, John transferred his entire retirement fund, $280,000, into the account Alex provided. He felt nervous but hopeful. For the first time in a long time, he believed he was making a smart financial decision. A few days later, an email arrived with the subject line, "Your investment summary, month 1." John clicked it, and there it was, a statement filled with upward-pointing graphs, interest growth, and tidy numbers in green. It looked perfect. Each month brought another report, showing profits increasing steadily. The more he saw, the more his faith grew. He printed out the statements and kept them in a folder on his desk. When friends from church asked how retirement was treating him, he smiled proudly. "Looks like we'll be okay after all," he'd say. "The young man handling my account really knows what he's doing." And would glance at the papers, still uneasy but comforted by John's confidence. The couple even started to dream again, maybe a road trip to Yellowstone, maybe helping their granddaughter with college. The numbers on those papers made everything seem possible. Then one morning, John noticed that no statement had arrived. He checked his email spam folder. Nothing. Maybe just a delay, he thought. He tried calling Alex to ask about it. The call rang twice, then went straight to voicemail. He tried again in the afternoon. Same thing. By evening, he'd left 3 messages, each more anxious than the last. The next day, he tried the toll-free number printed on his account form. A recorded message said, "We're sorry, this number is no longer in service." His stomach tightened. He opened his laptop and went to the company's website. It loaded for a moment, then flashed an error message, "Page not found." John refreshed it again and again, but it was gone. Everything, the dashboard, the statements, the phone numbers, had vanished. Panic began to creep in, slow and cold. He grabbed the papers Alex had mailed him, spread them across the kitchen table, and started dialing every number printed on them. Not a single one worked. And came in and saw his shaking hands. "John, what's wrong?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. He kept dialing, hoping one number, any number, would connect him to the voice that had once sounded so trustworthy. But the truth was starting to settle in his chest like a stone. Alex wasn't answering because Alex was gone. Still, John refused to believe it at first. Maybe it was a temporary glitch. Maybe the company was updating their system. He called his bank to confirm the transfer. The representative pulled up the records and said, "Yes, sir, the funds were transferred to an offshore account registered under a private entity." John's voice trembled. "Can you get it back?" The silence on the other end told him everything. That night, sleep wouldn't come. He sat in the dim light of the living room, staring at the stack of papers that suddenly looked different. Not official, not impressive, just meaningless ink on paper. Everything he'd built was gone. The next morning, he went to the police. The officer listened carefully and took his documents. When John mentioned the company name, the officer sighed softly. "We've had several reports about them. I'm afraid it's a scam, sir." A scam. The word echoed in his head like a bell. For years, he'd seen commercials and news reports warning seniors to be careful. He'd thought those victims were careless or greedy. But now he realized how easy it was to fall for something that looked and sounded so genuine. He wasn't greedy. He wasn't careless. He was just trusting, the kind of man who believed a firm handshake and a polite voice still meant something. Over the next few weeks, he filed reports, made calls, and waited for answers that never came. The authorities told him recovering the money was nearly impossible. It had been moved through dozens of accounts, each disappearing faster than the last. The company was fake. The website was a shell. The man he'd trusted, Alex Parker, didn't exist. In the end, John was left with nothing but regret and a stack of fake statements. He replayed every conversation in his head, trying to find the moment he should have seen the lie. Was it the too smooth compliments? The promises of zero risk? Or the way Alex said, "You've earned this"? He couldn't tell anymore. It was a retirement scam, designed for people exactly like him. Scammers who understood that seniors often value trust over greed. They didn't need to trick him with big promises. They only needed to sound like they cared. John learned the hardest truth of all. Sometimes the danger doesn't sound like a threat. Sometimes it sounds like a friend. By the time John filed his report, the story had already grown far bigger than he could have imagined. The FBI investigator who met him spoke in a calm, practiced tone, like someone who had said the same words to too many people before. She told him that his case was part of a much larger investigation, one that stretched across dozens of states. The same name, the same fake company, the same voice on the phone. Over $40 million had vanished from retirees just like him. John sat quietly, hands folded, trying to make sense of it all. 40 million. He couldn't even picture that kind of money. And yet somehow, piece by piece, his savings had become part of that mountain of stolen trust. The agent said the scammers were operating overseas, bouncing funds through layers of fake corporations and untraceable accounts. Most victims, she explained gently, would never see a dime again. Those words stayed with him for days. Never see a dime again. It wasn't just the money. It was what the money represented. A lifetime of saving, every extra shift, every decision to put off something fun because the future mattered more. That future was gone now. When he drove home from the meeting, the roads felt longer, emptier. The same town he'd lived in for decades somehow looked different, colder, less safe. He pulled into his driveway and saw the lake house brochure still pinned to the fridge, the one he and used to talk about fixing up for the grandkids. He pulled it down without a word. The next week, John sold the lake house. It broke his heart to see it go, but they needed the money just to cover basic expenses. And tried to be strong, but he could see the worry in her eyes every time she sat down to balance their bills. She started working part-time again at the local pharmacy, smiling through the fatigue because she didn't want John to feel worse than he already did. They cut back on everything. Vacations, dinners out, even cable TV. Small things that used to bring comfort now felt like luxuries they couldn't afford. John spent most of his days in the garden or sitting by the window, watching the seasons change like he was waiting for time itself to fix something it couldn't. But what hurt most wasn't losing the money. It was the betrayal. He couldn't understand how someone could sound so kind, so genuine, and still be capable of something so cruel. Every time he remembered Alex's voice, polite, patient, reassuring, it twisted like a knife in his chest. He began to replay every conversation, trying to find the moment where he should have known. Maybe it was when Alex had said, "You've earned this." Maybe it was when he'd promised zero risk. Or maybe there was never a clear moment at all, just a slow build of trust that felt too human to question. Sometimes, late at night, John would sit at the kitchen table with a cup of cold coffee and those old bank statements spread in front of him. The numbers still looked the same, neat and green, as if mocking him. He would trace his finger over the printed profits, those fake symbols of a future he'd believed in. He didn't cry often, but when he did, it wasn't from anger. It was from disbelief. How could someone go after people like him? People who had spent their lives building something honest? What kind of person looked at a man's life savings and saw an opportunity instead of a story? He started reading online about other victims. Teachers, veterans, widows, people who had trusted too easily, just like he had. Their stories sounded almost identical. The friendly calls, the official paperwork, the calm tone of voice. It wasn't just theft. It was manipulation at its deepest level. The scammers weren't stealing money. They were stealing comfort, security, dignity, the very things retirees had worked a lifetime to earn. One day, a reporter from a local news station called. They were covering the nationwide retirement scam case, and she wanted to interview him. At first, John refused. He didn't want people to see his face and think of him as a fool, and encouraged him to speak up. "You're not the only one, John," she said softly. "If your story helps someone else, maybe something good can come of it." So he agreed. The interview aired a week later. John sat at his kitchen table, the same spot where he had once signed those fateful papers, and told his story to the camera. He didn't use fancy words. He just spoke honestly about how easy it was to trust someone who sounded sincere. How scammers didn't just take money, they took peace of mind. The response was overwhelming. Dozens of viewers sent messages thanking him for his honesty. Some admitted they'd been approached by similar advisors, and nearly fell for it too. Others simply said, "You reminded me to double-check before trusting anyone." That night, for the first time in months, John slept without nightmares. He hadn't recovered his money, but he'd reclaimed something else, a sense of purpose. He started volunteering at a local senior center, helping others recognize scam tactics. He showed them how to spot red flags, the too good to be true promises, the fake seals, the pressure to act quickly. And every time he told his story, people listened. Because it wasn't a headline anymore, it was real. It was human. Still, there were nights when he'd wake up and feel the sting all over again. The sense of betrayal never truly left. But he learned to live with it, like an old scar that fades but never disappears. He realized something profound. He hadn't just lost his savings, he'd lost trust. And trust, once broken, takes a lifetime to rebuild. For John and Ann, life would never return to what it was before that call. But slowly, they found a new rhythm. They grew closer, more cautious, and somehow wiser. They started measuring wealth not by dollars in the bank, but by the peace they could still find in small, honest moments. A shared laugh, a warm cup of tea, a quiet evening without fear. And though the money was gone, one truth remained. You can rebuild finances, but when trust is stolen, it changes you forever. If you're retired, or planning to be, learn from John. His story isn't rare anymore. It's happening in quiet neighborhoods all across the country. Good people, honest people, who spent decades working hard, paying their dues, and doing everything right, are losing everything because someone on the other end of a phone call knew exactly how to sound trustworthy. The real danger isn't the market. It isn't inflation, or stocks, or interest rates. The real danger is the promise that sounds too perfect. The one that starts with, "I just want to help." The one that feels comforting, calm, and familiar. That's the sound of manipulation dressed as kindness. Scammers today don't wear masks or break into your home. They don't need to. They break into your confidence. They take advantage of your upbringing, the belief that a firm handshake, a polite voice, and an official letterhead still mean something. They know retirees grew up in a time when business was personal, when you could trust a man who looked you in the eye. That's what makes these scams so dangerous. They don't attack your ignorance, they exploit your values. John used to think he was too careful to fall for something like that. He'd tell people, "You can't trick me, I've been around too long." But scammers are patient. They don't rush you. They earn your comfort, one small conversation at a time. They talk about your family, your past, your plans. They make you feel seen, because they know that's how trust begins. So if you ever get that call, the one promising guaranteed safety or risk-free returns, hang up. No real investment works like that. There's no such thing as profit without risk. The minute someone says guaranteed, you should start hearing alarms, not reassurance. Never invest from a phone call. No matter how polite, no matter how professional it sounds. Legitimate advisors don't call you out of the blue asking for personal information or transfers. Real financial planners meet you in person, verify their credentials, and give you time to think. Never trust someone you've never met. Technology makes it easy to sound official. Fake websites, fake reviews, fake documents. Scammers know exactly what fonts banks use, what color seals government forms have. It's all designed to make you feel safe. But safety on paper means nothing if the person behind it isn't real. And if it ever feels rushed, pressured, or guaranteed, it's not an opportunity, it's a trap. Pressure is their most powerful weapon. They'll tell you there's a deadline, that the offer ends today, or that this is your last chance to protect your savings. Don't believe it. Real professionals give you time to think, to review, to ask questions. Scammers want decisions made fast, before doubt has a chance to grow. John learned that the hard way. He wished someone had told him sooner that the friendliest voice can still be a thief. He used to think scams happened to careless people, not to someone like him. Someone responsible, disciplined, cautious. But scams don't target carelessness. They target faith. Faith in people. Faith in systems. Faith that good intentions still exist. That's what makes losing it so painful, because once trust is gone, everything feels uncertain. You start second-guessing everyone. Every letter, every call, every offer starts to look suspicious. And that's exactly what scammers steal first, your ability to feel safe. So protect that safety. Guard it more fiercely than your savings. When in doubt, slow down. Talk to your bank. Talk to your kids. Talk to anyone you trust before you move a single dollar. Because if a deal can't survive a second opinion, It isn't a deal, it's a setup. The truth is, retirement should be the time in life when you finally rest. You've worked your whole life for peace, not paranoia. You've earned the right to mornings without worry, to quiet evenings without phone calls promising miracles. You've earned the right to trust the world again, but wisely this time. And if anyone ever tries to sell you peace of mind, remember this. Peace of mind isn't something you buy. It's something you build, with patience, with care, and with knowledge. John's story isn't meant to scare you. It's meant to remind you that wisdom doesn't mean knowing everything. It means knowing when to question what sounds too good to be true. It means listening to that small voice inside that says, "Wait a second." Because that single moment of hesitation can be the difference between safety and loss. If you've ever been scammed, or know someone who has, understand this, it doesn't define you. It doesn't mean you were foolish. It means you trusted in a world that sometimes doesn't deserve your trust. And the only shame lies with those who chose to betray it. What defines you isn't what you lost. It's what you do after. It's learning, sharing, and warning others. It's making sure no one else walks into the same trap. That's what John does now. His voice, once full of regret, now carries something stronger, purpose. He speaks so others can see the warning signs before it's too late. So if you're listening to this, take his lesson with you. If the words sound too polished, if the numbers seem too perfect, if the offer feels too easy, step back. Ask questions. Verify. Because the moment you stop asking questions, that's when they win. You worked your entire life for stability, comfort, and peace. Don't let anyone sell it back to you. Because true peace of mind isn't found in an investment account. It's found in the wisdom to say no when something doesn't feel right. And that, more than any interest rate or return, is what will truly protect your retirement.